Can start. Good morning, everyone. I request you all to please settle down for the session. I welcome you all to the day 3 of AISS. Today, we are here to deliberate on the topic the future of enterprise networking, connecting and securing everything. DSCI extremely thankful to have you all here. And today, for the moderator of our session, we have Mr. Karna Arun, MD and CEO at AT&T India. DSCI warmly welcomes you to just moderate this session. We are extremely thankful to have you here. I request you to take over.
Thank you, Homika. Good morning, everyone, on this cold Delhi morning. Welcome again to the annual Information Security Summit 2022. My name is Arun Karna, not Karna Arun. Yeah. It's the other way around, that's okay. And I welcome you all to this session titled The Future of Enterprise Networking, Connecting and Securing Everything. Welcome again to be with us, with your super busy schedules. I know it takes a lot of commitment to be in this room, so thank you so much. And we have a coming together of some of the most accomplished network and security practitioners from the industry here with us. And it is my honor and privilege to call them up on stage one by one. So I'll start here with Dr. Sashank Dara. He is the CTO, CISO, and co-founder Seconize. Sashank, please. Mr. JP Dwivedi, CIO, Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute and Research Center. Sir, please. Mr. Manoj Kurvanthori, CISO and DPO at Tredence. And last but not the least, Mr. Ajay Bongirwar, Country Manager, SAC at Delinia. Welcome, panelists. And, before I turn to our esteemed panelists here, I just want to take 2 minutes to set the context. The enterprise networking scenario is being driven by a digital-first and cloud-native approach. Digital transformation is pushing enterprises to be more distributed and expand to the edge. And there's a lot of exponential growth of IoT endpoints and related data at the edge of the network. Similarly, at the other end, cloud-based services are driving rapid change across industries, especially as organizations transition to SaaS-based applications in greater volumes. The influx of mobile devices and the Internet of Things and the increasing demand for bandwidth is changing the way the LAN and WAN must be managed going forward. It's estimated that by 2023, 70% of enterprises will rely on the Internet for branch and remote office connectivity, just as at the same time, about 20 billion IoT devices enter the mainstream market. Now, as you can imagine, this is a daunting challenge for the enterprise security. In addition, they now have to contend with the direct-to-internet traffic, which is really picking up now, which completely bypasses the corporate perimeter. So that's a huge challenge. So, the fact of the matter is that this potentially exposes the business to security risks and increases the burden on the enterprise security team to maintain a consistent access layer policy. So as the enterprises get increasingly distributed and expand to the edge, they need the means to securely connect their users, mobile endpoints, and IoT devices to their applications. So fair to say that providing security to a mobile workforce at par with their branch office environment requires an agile, scalable, and elastic network approach. I would have to say that I've been in the enterprise networking business for close to 33 years now. And I can tell you from experience that enterprise networks have never been as complex as they are now, with users, infrastructure, applications, mobile and IoT devices needing connectivity to data centers, branch locations, and the public cloud worldwide all at the same time. Traditional networks that have been built over a period of time, they're not designed for today's connectivity, data, and secure edge computing demands. So how will the enterprises of today tackle these challenges across campus, branch, data center, and remote working needs? These are some of the points that we'd like to ponder in the session that is about to follow, and I'm lucky to have such eminent panelists to be with us today. So let me go and speak to the panel. Shank, maybe start with you, and like we at the start of the session, we mentioned that enterprises are getting more and more distributed, and they're expanding at the edge. So how does one secure everything? Going from mobile endpoints to IoT devices. And is there a concept like securing everything? Is that even possible? Is it ZTNA or is it something more? What's your prescription, doctor?
Yeah, hope I'm audible now, right? So, securing everything is a myth. I'm being very candid, right? Let's be more practical. I do see, the exact challenges which you have been mentioning that, it's so complex, dynamic environment and things are changing so fast. People are connecting direct to internet, people are connecting in office, remote working, everything, right? Anytime this complexity comes, my prescription, so to speak, would be to back to basics, right? Just get to basics in the sense that what are your assets, key assets, who is connecting to that and from where they are connecting to, very, very fundamental level, right? Unless you know what your assets are, there is nothing that you can secure. You should know your assets first, right? And then after knowing the assets, which is in itself is a daunting task. You don't even know what IoT devices are connecting to your network and things like that, right? Starting from basics again, right? Then what are the risks being posed from that? The solutions like ZTNA and the SASE comes later, only after you identify what risks you are being posed to, right? The solution comes after. So I would say back to basics, identify all your assets, what kind of vulnerabilities and risks are being posed, what is the threat to your business, what is your threat to your infrastructure, and then work out a solution. It could be ZTNA, it could be SASE, it could be cloud delivered services, right? So I would say solutions will be an afterthought. Back to basics, identify your risks first. Okay? That would be my take.
So that's the prescription from the doctor. First, it's a daunting task to know your assets in the first place. There's so many IoT devices getting added to the enterprise network. Also, the mobile endpoints. So knowing them and knowing the threats, therefore, that are forthcoming to the enterprise network, and then think in terms of the appropriate tailored solutions. Thank you, Sashank. Mr. JP, coming to you, sir. You come from a very elite cancer research institute and hospital, and long years of experience in the healthcare arena. Can you please share your thoughts and experiences about how patient care can be improved by the use of IT and process automation in hospitals? And while you are at it, while you are applying all those processes, technology and automation, how do you make sure in that environment that the patient records, the patient history, which is of course very private and sensitive, how those health records are secured? We've recently witnessed an attack on a premier medical institute and hospital. So in the light of that, is there a change in thinking? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Arun. And thank you, DSCI and NASCOM for inviting me here. So Dr. Shashank talked about basics. I'll take you further into basics. So, Arun, your questions are basically you are asking two different questions, and I'll take them one by one. First, how technology can help healthcare. So from a patient perspective, I've been talking about 4 basic factors that actually matter to the patients. Number 1, safety. When I'm walking in the hospital, please, for heaven's sake, let me walk out. Don't kill me by your errors and problems. Second, clinical outcome. I have come here for a purpose. I have not come to enjoy your five-star hospitality. So serve my purpose, treat my disease problem, or at least improve my situation. So that is clinical outcome. Third is help me affording your care. So reduce the cost wherever possible so that I can continue the course of the treatment. And fourth, though I don't want to be treated like a king, but I want you to minimize my discomfort. So that is patient experience. And technology is actually helping in all these areas. And I'll tell you one by one. So coming to patient safety, what are basic safety problems? Identifying a wrong patient, wrong procedure, wrong medicine, wrong dose. These are all potential hazards that basically, and these are not unknown things, wrong surgical site. This happens. So technology is immensely helping by very basic things, like putting the barcoded wristbands. So you can identify the patient correctly. You do the sample collection on the bed itself and barcode there itself so that there is no gap, there is no possibility of error. These are some of the very basic, technology interventions that are helping. The wrong medicines. Take the order online when doctor is prescribing and let that order flow through all the way up to the medicine infusion to the patient and create electronic medication administration chart so that there is no possibility of anyone interfering with that order and causing any potential opportunity for an error. So this is very basic and fundamental aspect. Second is clinical outcome. See, here a lot of work is going on. If you look at the surgical robots, they are able to now pinpoint the problem, the area of the disease, much more sharper and with efficacy than the previous traditional surgery, and even vital organs stay unaffected when you perform that surgery. Similarly, use of AI in radiology, pathology, digital pathology, having analytics there, you have much more chances of doctor succeeding in pinpointing the disease and treating it more accurately with the help of clinical decision support system, etc. Coming to the third aspect, that is the cost reduction. So with the advent of telemedicine, patient able to consult doctor upfront from home itself, then lot of other cost saving mechanisms, like if earlier 6 tests were required, pinpoint it to 3. At least patient will save on these 3 tests, and on and on. So many different aspects of research is going on in usage of technology. Fourth is patient experience. Start from the website. Put the contents that makes it easy for the patient to search what he or she is looking for. Then make it easy to take an appointment to reach the hospital. Then thereafter, once you have reached, create a application for the easy navigation inside the hospital, so patient is not wandering here and there. Lots of experience, look at the bedside. Nurse is running around for every little thing. Make application so that patient knows whom to call, not to call the nurse for the cup of tea or coffee or something. That is actually criminal wastage of her time while she is busy, giving care to other patients. So there are a number of areas where technology can help and is helping. Now coming to your second point, that is on the security aspect. So there are 2 aspects inside security. One is the protecting the data from being destroyed, but even more profound and important is patient privacy. In healthcare, that is very, very vital, because in banking, even if your bank account is leaked, somebody will be able to harm you to the extent that you have in your account. But if your health status is leaked, somebody knows that this person is HIV positive or something, it cannot change. It has permanent imprint on your profile, and the damage is very, very profound. So we need to be very careful while protecting the data as well as the privacy of the patient. And there are technologies. This is actually getting more and more risky now because we are more and more online. So when data is available online, the chances of hacking and misuse is huge. So technologies are there to protect at every stage. So starting from the endpoint to the server, to all the layers, to the network, keep the security layers to maintain the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of the data.
So basically security at every layer, you secure each and every layer by itself, and that leads to end-to-end security regime.
Of course, okay. Of course, and you cannot overdo security.
Totally agree with, that's where I think we are all part of the choir here, and we understand, the whole thing about data security, but the point that you mentioned that more than data security, it's the privacy of the individual that is even more, should be more sanctified in that sense. Thank you for that, sir. Manoj, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think there is some cascade between what Shashank said and JP sir just said, right? It's more on, focusing on the basics all this while.
Right.
But the attack surface has increased so much, and the attacks have been happening so much globally that just basics is just not enough. I mean, I understand what Shashank said. I mean, it's about getting your basics right first, definitely. Many organizations don't even have their basics right. That's the concern right now, right? Even looking at the health industry for that matter, some of these attacks which we have seen in the country today is because of lack of basic security. We are not talking any rocket science here, at least in the case of those attacks that we are referring to, right? So get the basics right, yes, but what JP sir said was primarily about looking at the integrity of the data. How do you ensure patient experience, of course, and at the same time ensuring the integrity of the data so that the records don't get tampered with, right? So that is a primary aspect to that, right? Because that is the only way we can ensure that the patients get the right treatment or not the wrong treatment, right? Or it does not cause any fatality, right? Yeah. Because some data got contaminated, somebody injected something else into that data and things like that. Then comes, to add complexities into this whole equation is the new digital bill which is in the works right now, and there's been a lot of fire and smoke in that, where we have been talking about ensure there's a 250 crores whatever penalty for if in an event of a breach and whatnot, right? So now that adds way too much of I would say compliance burden, which each of these organizations will anyways have to take, because the bill as and when it gets passed, then we will have to go in that direction, right. Which means that each of these entities, irrespective of the sector in the country, will have to spend on privacy, and because privacy, definitely data protection as well. So when you say data protection is security, right? So which means you need to keep a portion of your revenues for your security and privacy budget to be able to cater to the bare minimum demands of security and privacy for the respective entities. Yeah. Now you talk about the complex factors of security, right? You talk about zero trust, and talk about SASE and whatnot, right? Now it all depends on which sector you are, what budgets you can utilize, how much budgets you have to spend on it, and whether you have a good security and privacy workforce to actually make it happen, right? It is like you cannot necessarily buy a state-of-the-art tool and you don't use it to the best of its capabilities, or you don't even know how to use it.
So skills
management will come. So it is all interrelated. So that's what my takeaway is from the first 2
Good
points.
point. So thank it's threat service. Ajay, sorry, you want to add?
So I just wanted to add a couple of points more from connecting what Shashank said and what JP sir said and what Manoj added. So while we are talking back to basics, but that doesn't mean that we are not adopting new technologies, right? Cloud came, we adopted cloud. Everybody is adopting cloud. But when cloud came, where is the basics of cloud security? Are you adopting the basics of cloud security as well? You, sir, talked about experience, improving the experience, mobile applications he talked about. Have you adopted the basics of mobile application security? Right? So it's not just about basics of the older perimeter security technologies, but adopting first at the first step the basics of the new adoption. We talk about digitization or digitalization today, and when you do digitalization, you want to do the basics of the security there as well. So first, the step is the security basics, privacy basics, and as JP sir rightly said, security at every layer, right? So we do that, and then there's more.
So
Always.
well summarized. I think get the basics means doesn't need to even if it is adoption of new technologies, get the basics right first, and then look for more complex stuff. And of course, it has to be married with how much are you willing to spend? What's the actual threat? And therefore that guides the choice of technologies. But then even beyond that, do you have the skills to use that technology as it is supposed to, so that it delivers what it is supposed to?
Okay.
Great summary.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a couple more into this same point, right? We need to understand and appreciate that there is so much of nation states in the play here when we're looking at the attack surface, right? Now, somebody yesterday told me that there is a new variant of COVID coming up. I think all of us have been reading about it, right? But
we are all reading it.
now we don't know what the data is going to be used for from the recent hospital attack, because they would have gotten hold of millions of records. They will have so much of detailing or different age groups of individual, gender, the trends of illness and whatnot of that many number of Indians, right? Now, what a really genetically advanced or technologically advanced scientists and countries can do with that kind of data, it is. I mean, we are all living in an era where there is what we can imagine is actually coming true, right? We are talking about AI. We have seen what Chat GPT could do since last 2 weeks. We have been all reading about it and watching videos there, right? So these are things which you have only seen in movies in the past. Now it's actually becoming reality, right? So we need to be very serious about how we are, even processing this entire aspect of security and privacy for our entities. Because without that, we will not be able to actually secure the business itself in the first place, right? And then, of course, you talk about national security when it's going to happen at a much larger scale, for that matter.
So we are actually seeing proliferation of viruses at both levels.
Talk
The
about
biological viruses and computer viruses. So India has been successful in making vaccine for biological viruses. I'm very hopeful that a similar thing will come for the computer viruses as well.
Yeah, we've got the experts here. So, so Manoj, you talked about the fact that things which we imagine are coming true, and that takes me to metaverse. I know there was a great session on metaverse prior to this, but I think since it's emerging so quickly, there's a lot of talk about metaverse being the next evolution of the internet and a potential game changer even for businesses. And organizations seem to be scrambling to establish a toehold, foothold, whatever presence. In that sort of rush, if there might be, to metaverse, which is expected. How should, what's your advice to organizations? How should they prepare for the metaverse to ensure that security, privacy, and compliance is maintained? It's a totally different world altogether. What would be your advice to them?
Actually, it's a totally different world, really, right? So metaverse. I think how I look at it is that it is something which is still being evolved. It is still in that process of being moved from a concept to reality kind of a thing. I mean, there are many companies already out there. There are many VCs who have invested in metaverse companies and things like that. But I mean, before we talk about security and privacy, I mean, for anything for that matter, we need to first understand what are the underlying concerns there is. What is the nature of business? What is the statutory regulatory risks involved? How much of risks are there for individuals at the end of the day if something goes wrong, etc. And then plan on the security and privacy aspect of it. Even if we take a step back, if we are trying to look at what is metaverse in short, right? It is nothing but we are creating a augmented or a virtual reality paradigm, and we are trying to blend the physical and the virtual together. That is in a nutshell what we are doing, right? Even if you take, let's say, AR for instance, there are so many technologies out there. You can overlay the physical aspects with some digital imprint of information on our phones itself. Because I think everybody is on smartphone these days, right? You talk about synthetic reality or the VR, the virtual reality piece. You are looking at getting a completely immersive experience where you are either taking an avatar, a completely different avatar. Let's say, I mean, for example's sake, if you want to take an avatar of Amitabh Bachchan, right? And you are Amitabh Bachchan in that avatar. Yeah, so not me. Yeah, so that is one, right? Or else you make use of technologies like the Microsoft HoloLens and the holographic kind of an experience where you are actually in that virtual environment as yourself, right? What will happen or what is going to happen now in the metaverse context is that there is going to be innumerable number of IoT devices, their sensors, and there will be way too much of data gathering than what it is today. Today itself, we are all concerned about the mass data gathering which is happening from all media players. You talk about social media companies and whatnot, right? The amount of data they are actually gathering to then create further advertised, pinpointed campaigns and whatnot, for all right and wrong reasons as well. Like I think just yesterday one of the speakers was saying, the data has exploded. The use of data has exploded 10 times in the last 5 years. So you can imagine this is without metaverse in picture. Okay. Now you add metaverse into picture where you are actually having that immersive experience. You are doing that for either for business or for pleasure, and you're involved in that environment, giving all sort of information about you, that we are sitting and talking here, I'm looking up, or I'm sneezing. Everything is being captured. So now you are talking about your behavior patterns being captured, your fingerprints being captured, your face ID being captured, your every other biometric parameters being captured, and that being driven to much more powerful metrics than what we have today. Somewhere I read Google has some 180 plus parameters for each of us by now, right? What is our browsing history, how we click, what is our likes, dislikes, and whatnot. So there's so much of data already out there. So imagine with the kind of exposure we are going to have in metaverse environment, how it is going to explode further. So now how do we secure it? It is going to be very difficult because of the amount of data involved. And again, it will all depend on how they are going to have their infra setup. And users will have very limited control in a metaverse context.
So what's your sort of very quick 2 or 3 to-dos and don't-dos?
I honestly don't have a clear-cut answer to this because
Right.
um, it is still open to debate today.
Right.
Um, you know, these are things which are just becoming a reality now, right? It is like you signing up in a big social media platform, and you say I agree or whatnot, right? And most of us don't read the disclaimer, and you just say I agree, so that you can move forward with the registration process and using the platform, and you are in a nutshell giving away the rights of your data and whatnot in the process,
Right.
right? Now, thanks to GDPR and all that, there has been some control on it, but still there's a lot of gaps in that process as well, right? But it will see for metaverse organizations who are metaverse providers. I'm not talking from a user perspective, right? You are not in control of your security that way, right? You need to depend on the technology providers who are working on the data for whichever business purposes, right? They will definitely need to have a really advanced level of security, imbibing all these fundamental controls we're talking about. You talk about layered security controls. You talk about network segmentation, micro segmentation, a host of security solutions such as SASE, and everything for that matter, which will also include zero trust, for instance.
Right.
It'll be just one of those components, right? Because we are all talking about how do you secure our identity. The risks which are here right now in metaverse, what we need to also remember is that the identity is going to be the biggest thing, biggest parameter which is going to be at risk, because avatars could get taken over, right? So, like for example, if you and me are talking face to face, I know it's you and you know it's me, right? But if it's avatar, you have replicated yourself to somebody else.
Yeah. So
Wanted
Sean
to
might
add a
want to
joke
add to
there.
that. Yeah.
In the pre-metaverse world, they used to tell you can't differentiate a dog from a human who is behind the computer, right? So in the metaverse, it's a whole different league altogether.
So it is like that, right? Now to add to this is that ethical use of AI. Now this is being debated for as long as AI has been there. Now it is coming more and more into the open, right? Now how do these metaverse providers use AI ethically, right? It is like you can say, it's like we're saying that okay, we will design a 3D printer and design it in such a way that it will not print a gun. Okay, but what if you give instructions to the 3D printer to print the barrel, to print the handle, to print the magazine, and to print the trigger, which all can be attached together. Okay, now this you're beating the system. So last day I was playing around with this new Chat GPT thing. I mean, I'm also getting my hands on it. Just a basic stuff, right? Some basic stuff. So in one of the articles, they said that I just asked it a particular question and it wrote me a phishing email. Okay, so the requester asked the Chat GPT bot, the AI tool, that give me a sample phishing simulation mail which I can send, use it in my simulation tool, phishing simulation tool. What's the question? The Chat GPT actually wrote a proper phishing email, right? Now this is where we are today, right? Now what if I ask it to write a ransomware code? Right?
That's
But today morning,
scary.
I tried the same question. Today morning, I tried the same question from that article to the Chat GPT. Now they've already modified it.
So yeah,
They've modified it, and Chat GPT responded to me saying that this is against my content delivery policies because it is illegal, and therefore I'm sorry I cannot help you. So they are also evolving.
true. So it's fair to say it's evolving. We have to watch our steps as we would do in any other scenario, but metaverse takes it to another different level simply because of the explosion of data that happens, right? So very quickly moving on to you, Ajay, especially in the context of enterprise networks, network hardening is the top of mind for every CISO. You've dealt with a lot of them. Can you share some best practices from your perspective on how to secure increasingly complex and dynamic networks?
So, so network hardening, we firstly will have to come out of our paradigm that network hardening is inside a perimeter. Okay, because you already mentioned that today we have cloud, we have IoT, we have applications, SaaS, uh, users working from homes, whatnot, right? So there is no parameter. So how do you do network hardening in an open internet?
Right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm modifying your question.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to be a very silver bullet that you can do this with one solution or one technology or one product or one practice. There to be a layers, as we talked about, multiple layers. We'll talk about have to do microsegmentation, SASE, SSE. But at the end of the day, there is one underlying aspect we'll have to all remember. We talked about, Manoj talked about identity is going to be everything. Okay, I'll go one step up, saying we have to treat each identity now as a privileged user. We understand that for privileged user, we were giving them a different treatment, right? We were making sure that they are accountable, they are auditable. There's a lot more things. We were giving them a different treatment. But how do you make in an open internet where everything users' privileges can be taken over, their identities can be taken over? So we have to give them a treatment of a privileged users unless we can secure the identity right from the authentication layer, right from the authorization, what he can do, what he cannot do. What can you treat to that particular identity? So it's like, if I want to give an example, we say the traffic in the whole world is a chaos. There are millions of vehicles. Okay. Now imagine if a vehicle is identified with 5 different number plates, and each number plate can be connected to 5 each owners, and then for those identities you don't have addresses, phone numbers, email IDs, right? So it's mess. So we have found a way that everything that runs on the road or the air today, we have an identifier, right? We have an identifier, and we can map it to one accountable person where we have the identity. Can I go back and change the address of the person when I am scanning that particular number plate from my CCTV cameras or whatever? We probably cannot, and we should not be able to. So being able to, taking back to the healthcare world, if they're a customer and if you are able to fiddle with the customer's data, then we are losing it, right? So being able to treat every user as a privileged user of the authentication, the authorization, what he can do and what you can do back to the identity itself. I think if we think this through both in the to and fro direction and set the processes accordingly, I think we'll be able to do. Again, it can apply to the metaverse as well. The principles will remain the same. Of course, technologies will vary. So I don't want to debate on the technologies, but rather talk about the principles itself.
I think that's very good, very simply put. Obviously, very complex, but I think the concept and the way you put it so simply, thank you for that. And I come to you again, Sashank, and this is a common question, quick fire question, beginning with you, Sashank. As a security expert or security professional, what keeps you up at night? Not Netflix, but what else keeps you awake at night?
Okay. As a security professional, what keeps me up tonight is, am I doing enough?
Am I doing enough? Okay.
Right? That has layers to it. First, I should know what is that I have, what is that I'm doing, and is it enough in the sense to safeguard my organization or my customer's organization, right? I think that would be the thing. Am I doing enough?
Mr. Devedi, sir.
Sir.
So, I'm naturally blessed with sound sleep. So,
So no keeping awake, sir.
so sleep is not robbed. But I have 2 questions always running in the back of my mind. and that is always there. First, I have awakened a genie. I have pushed doctors too hard to use electronic health record. Now, if the system is not available, entire healthcare delivery gets disrupted. And that is a big problem that haunts at times. And second is, we have talked enough about it, the data breach, the incident that just happened at one of the premier institutes. And there are many, many more which are not coming to the surface. I experience things hitting, bombarding our databases as well. But we fortunately are able to thwart them. But again, you have to be lucky every time. They have to be lucky once.
Well said. Manoj, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I echoed pretty much what both of them just said, right? I think one is phishing as a possibility. It's a reality today, right? I mean, every day, almost all of us receive at least half a phishing mail. I mean, if you average it out, right, in a month. And that is going to be there. How prone are users to being, it just takes one person to get compromised, right? You need not compromise every employee, 100% of the employees of the company. So that is one concern. Other concern is about ransomware attacks, right? You can always have a certain level of satisfaction that you have done your best. You have put in state-of-the-art technologies. Your security teams are really good. They know the products that they're using. They have plugged whatever are the known gaps. But there are always 0 days which you don't even know. Even the product vendors don't know. But it comes to the light to somebody else who really have an interest, like hackers, and they know it maybe weeks or months or maybe years in advance actually. Okay, but the product vendors get to know about it much, much later, and only after which they release a patch for it. So that catch-up game is always there in the security industry.
Yes.
But that is something, I mean, there are two ways of looking at it. You can say that, okay, let me not worry about what I don't know, which I cannot do anything about, and let me focus on what I know, and am I doing good enough in that side of things, like how Shashank was saying, right? So that is one way of saying it, and then reducing your stress levels at the end of the day, and hopefully have a good sleep, right?
Okay.
So I think these are some of those things, but I think phishing, ransomware attacks, and the number of attacks happening in the industry today, it is, earlier it used to be once in few months kind of a thing, right? Now it is every week you hear a minimum of one attack, a minimum of one larger attack. I mean, I'm sure that there are plenty of organizations which are getting compromised every day, which either they don't know they are already compromised, or they are just not announcing it in the public.
Right.
Right? Now, for security professionals, one part of their learning is also from breaches. So,
That's
which
true,
is why breach analysis is very, very important. So, which means if you hear about a large breach, you try to find out whatever information is available and learn from it and see how you can stop it from happening in your organization, and what are the gap fixes that we need to do. And so these are the things which just keeps running in my mind all the time.
Well said.
Yeah.
Ajay?
I'll take it probably relating to the topic when we're talking future of networking or enterprise networking. I actually keep myself thinking what are going to be the future attacks. Looking at the current attacks, meaning if I just take yesterday's example, I don't know how many of you heard that the Okta's source code was gone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So while one thought comes to my mind that maybe somebody will create a replica of Okta, that's still fine. I mean, I don't think it's a big worry for even Okta. They cannot get the Okta brand. But then if somebody is going to utilize this for the bad things and find out the 0-day vulnerabilities or issues or problems within Okta, and then launch targeted attacks one after the other on Okta customers, that's going to be bad. I think these are the kind of thoughts that come to me.
Great, excellent. Great discussion here. And maybe we have just 2 minutes to take one audience question. Go ahead. So the question is, when quantum computing matures a little bit. Yeah. Right. Okay.
So, see, advancements in technologies are always going to happen. That is not in our control. What encryption algorithms are made available for public use is also not in our control because somebody is releasing it for public use, which is then getting implemented into the products in the market. So if today a particular encryption, or let's say if it's 256-bit, tomorrow if the 512 version of it gets released or 1024 version of it gets released, we will always tend to use the highest version available. But it is very, very likely, or it is the reality actually, that governments will be using a much higher end encryption, or maybe not even AES. They might be using something completely different, right? They will not, maybe let's say the government is using 10 times higher powerful encryption schemes, which is not permitted to be launched to the market today, right? So it will be like that.
Yeah. If you recollect my opening statement, securing everything is a myth, right? Coming back to the quantum thing, sometimes increasing the key strength is one. Sometimes the fundamental algorithm itself is broken. Then key strength increasing also doesn't help. I mean, given my background in crypto and things like that, right? So there are definitely alternative crypto schemes evolving which are quantum resistant. But it's always a catch-up game, I would say. It's just because somebody has written a quantum algorithm 20 years back, they're imagining that RSA could be broken. Not likely that today you use quantum resistant crypto schemes. We don't know yet that somebody has built it, right? So it is going to be a catch-up game, security, unfortunately. Securing everything is a myth. That's the reality we have to live with. And then have our expectations right. That's the most realistic thing I could think of.
With that, audience, we'll have to bring this discussion to a close. Thank you so much for listening to us patiently. And thank you, esteemed panelists, for a great discussion. I've personally learned a lot from this discussion. And yes, we will make sure that as far as possible, we'll try and secure everything. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.